Between the two of them, the inside of Coates, Parker gets too heavily involved. And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Welcome, one and all, to the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship, powered by VRRC. You meet us at the green hell of Oulton Park for what will be a pretty sensational evening's racing. It also marks the halfway point in the championship. As you can tell, Andy McEwen, I was going to say Andy Carroll, Andy McEwen has not got a cold. No, this is Jack Oliphant bringing you in. So alongside me in the commentary box is Lewis Edwards for the evening. Lewis, how the devil are we?
I'm really good, thanks, Jack. It's a pleasure to be commentating on my second race of the championship. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're starting to make a bit of a habit of this, aren't we? Since you jumped into the commentary box for the first time, I believe it was for the NASCAR championships, wasn't it? When we had you, me, and Andy McEwen all in the box, but Andy was racing, you were streaming, and I was just sitting here chatting rubbish all night. So, yeah, are you enjoying the commentary sort of little gambits that you're doing here, there, and everywhere?
Yeah, life with the microphone turned on, as I like to call it, because Jack, Andy, Rich will all hear me, but the viewers won't in usual broadcasts. But today you get to hear my opinions out loud rather than over Discord. But it's always really good fun to commentate, and especially when we've got a series like this where it's all super close between all the drivers, and realistically we've got any one of a very big number of drivers could be in for a win. And then we've got a reverse grid, so that's just another thing to stir the pot for an interesting 2 rounds this evening.
I was going to say the practice times look very close indeed, but we'll get Lewis's interpretations of them in a little bit, because of course we've got to run through the calendar. We've already been to Donington Park, we've been to Brands Hatch, and of course Croft, the Devil's Circuit, last time out. But we're here at Oulton Park for round 4. As I said, it marks the halfway mark after the second race this evening. We are on the home stretch almost, with Snetterton, Thruxton, Brands Hatch GP, and of course Silverstone to round out this fantastic touring car championship. Right, everybody in the YouTube chat as well, please do get involved, please do comment, and make sure you engage with it, because we have got plenty of prizes up for grabs, and you guys are involved with some of the prizes as well. So we'll get on to them in a couple of minutes' time. We've got to have a look at the last race, though, don't we, Lewis? Because, of course, it was all rather dramatic, but Jack Smith ended up coming home with the most amount of points, didn't he? Run us through what else happened.
Well, Jack managed to get one of the best starts I've ever seen in VRRC history in race 1, and then in typical Jack Smith style managed to control it, and then his teammate Oliver Gibson managed to follow him through in second place. The main action we had was Elliot Daltonaires was initially up to third, but Jordan Taylor reeled him back in throughout the race and managed to get him for the podium in race 1, and it was carnage in race 2, as quite a lot of people all went for the same piece of road at the same time, and we saw cars fired off in all sorts of directions. And in one of the screenshots you'll see Eric did a bit of photoshopping skills and gave himself a little parking ticket after parking the car at the exit of turn 1 rather than on the apex. But we had all sorts of racing up and down the grid. We had Paul Laramie, who led the race for quite a number of laps in race 2, but just got reeled in towards the end of that race and fell a little bit further back in the pack. And overall, it meant that Jack Smith, after navigating most of the chaos in race 2, ended up with 49 points and the most for that round. Also, the highest anybody has scored across a full round this season so far. Kyle Felders managed to get that win on the reverse grid, navigating cars left, right and centre, especially in the first couple of laps, to then take home the race win in that second reverse grid race, which boosted him up to 40 points in total. And Oliver Gibson wasn't too much further behind his teammate Jack Smith in race 2, had a good battle with Scott Bugner and Elliot Dalton-Ayres. As he was commenting in the Discord chat, he was really happy with how the battle went, and that meant that he is on 37 points overall. And we gave Jordan Taylor the driver of the round after an impressive overall round of good pace. And what this has meant for the championship is it's still Jack Smith that leads, but there's only 1 point in it for second. And then we've got 2 drivers tied for 4th place, and there's really small point gaps everywhere you look down the field, as it's going to be the best 2 of 3 races in that championship standings with our dropped round. We will then see the best 3 of 4 races after this evening. Notably, Eric Axelson, down there in 9th place, is also not going to be racing with us this evening. He has got commitments outside of VRRC to attend to. So unfortunately, we won't see the Swedish assassin. So it's going to be Josh Martin flying the flag in a high visibility builder's outfit. I'm sure Dave from the YouTube chat had something to do with that. He and Josh seem to have an agreement on kind of an outfit theme, if you like, for each round of the championship. So I'm sure we'll look forward to seeing how these progress across the season. Hopefully this one will score him some more points, as he's there in 7th at the moment, flying the flag for the Mean Green Racing team. And we've got Jordan Taylor in 8th after his improved round at Croft. And Eric down in 9th, and we've got Andy Dorman down in 10th. That concludes how it all looks for the championship at the moment. And this is Jack's favourite part of the stream, where he gets to talk for a long while because we have so many prizes to offer everybody.
We do indeed, and well, they're all on your screen now, hopefully, because we've got quite regular viewers. But if anybody out there who is brand new, I will reintroduce what we've got coming up. It's first place will win a Cammus simulation wheelbase. It's a direct drive wheelbase, very good. We got a first place trophy alongside that as well. The top 3 all get trophies. Second place, the Aegon 34-inch gaming display, or monitor, as you might want to call it. A very good piece of equipment. I've actually got one on my simulator. I love it to bits. Apologies. P3, you get a Thrustmaster handbrake and shifter. I think it's a 2-in-1 sort of debacle. You also get a 3rd place trophy. 4th, you get 2 hours sim practice at the VRRC Sim Centre, just to get you that extra couple of tenths to maybe get you on the podium in the next championship. 5th place, you get 1 hour sim practice in the VRRC Sim Centre. Obviously, the VRRC Sim Centre, we've moted quite a few times over the course of the last couple of weeks, but is located at Leighton Buzzard, and you get to spend the afternoon with Rich Hayden as he teaches you a little bit how to get a little bit quicker in any kind of machinery that you want to, whether it's real life, whether it's in the sim, or anything in between as well. We obviously have the prize draw, where we get 2 1-hour sim practice sessions at the VRRC Sim Centre. But for that, you have to be 1, outside the top 5 finishing, and 2, have done at least 7 or more rounds of the championship. So if you do 7, 8, or 9 rounds of the championship, you are entered into that prize draw, and you can win a 1-hour sim practice centre at the VRRC. There's also the driver of the rounds that we've just mentioned. I think Jordan Taylor got it last week, where you get a nice NGK jacket to go alongside your driver of the round medal. That will be posted out to you as well. And there's the top scorer, which Jack Smith has won twice now, I believe, in this championship, which means he's got another NGK hat to go alongside his other NGK hat, I imagine. Or maybe he's chosen something else to replace the second one with. And there is also the prize for the best commenter, the best viewer that we've got here for this evening, that I think wins an NGK jacket as well. So the same prize as the driver of the round. So please do get commenting, sharing, and subscribing, all those sort of good things, as all YouTube people tend to ask you for these days. But this time, if you actually do it, you may well get a prize, whereas normally you sort of just get a small sense of satisfaction you've helped out the stream. Well, you get that, plus a lovely jacket as well if you do it with us. Right, I believe it's about that time that we start looking towards actual racing and not just talking about it. So let's go for a quick tour of Oulton Park, that courtesy of Lewis Edwards.
Hello everyone and welcome to the 4th round of the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship Season 4. We're here at Oulton Park into Old Hall Corner. Take as late in Apex as you can, get back to the power and watch the track limits on the exit. Going down the hill now towards Cascades. Going to brake just after the dip and then take another really late Apex, using up as much of the track limits as you can on the exit. A little bit of a straight to breathe, get yourself over to the left hand side. You want to spot your braking marker on the 100-meter board, down into second gear. Again, focusing on staying tight to the apex and then getting a good exit. Back on the hybrid here, if you wish, in the race. And we've got ourselves another straight before we get into the chicanes. You want to prepare yourselves, brake as late as you can, about 75 meters. Take a lot of curb on the right hand and not so much on the left hand. And then we've got another right hander here. Stay away from the curb as that seems to unsettle the car on the exit. And now we're heading up the hill. We'll stay left through here to minimize the distance. And then back all the way over to the left-hand side, the right-hander here. It's not so important to hit the apex, just about carrying the speed through the corner and not running too wide on the exit. You don't want to go on the grass, that might unsettle the car. We're already into the final corner. I'm going to brake at that Dunlop board on the left-hand side, down the gears, and you want to get back to the power as soon as you can. Be very careful on the track limits there, using some hybrid if you have it, and that completes a lap of Oulton Park.
And we're back, I believe, although I can't see any pictures coming up. There we go. The lovely green fields of Cheshire. Every time I look at a timing screen for Oulton Park, it comes up with qualifying at Oulton Park Island, because of course we're doing the Island circuit, which is a standard touring car circuit for anybody who has been to Oulton Park or watched it on the TV. And then underneath it actually gives the address, which is pretty cool on our servers, and it says Little Budworth, Tarpley, Cheshire, Great Britain. And that's always a bit weird to me, because I actually grew up in Tarpley, which is, yeah, and so it's weird to see it actually racing the sim and acknowledged in sim racing. It's pretty cool, actually. But enough about me twiddling on. Elliot Daltonaire is currently top of the times. We have only had about one lap, I believe. How long are we expecting the cars needing to warm up, tyres to warm up, and what tends to be the strategy, Lewis, when we go into qualifying here at Oulton Park?
I would guess that we're going to see 2 runs from each driver. There's obviously the track grip ramping up throughout the session, which will then progress into the races. So we are going to hopefully see the quickest laps set towards the end of qualifying. But it does take a good 2 or 3 laps at least to get the tyres up to that 100% grip to start a real push lap. You can heavily feel it through the wheel when the car's gripping up each lap. It's a lovely feeling when you go out in the session at the start and you just see that delta constantly going green everywhere, each corner you go around. And Elliot Daltonaire has already put in a 24.5, now down to a 24.4 from Nicky Taylor. Those are some very quick lap times already. And I think they've done 1 push lap so far, so they're probably now about on 100% grip. So I think this is the lap where we're going to see them really setting those good lap times. And then they've got about 2 or 3 laps at peak grip, and then the tyres will start to go off a bit. So they'll probably set 2 laps on this run to try and get into the pits to make sure they've got enough time to get a full run on that 100% grip towards the end of the session when the track grip is going to be at its highest. But it's going to be a close one. We've got 1/10 of a second between the top 2 at the moment, and Josh Martin up there in 3rd place now.
He is indeed, and actually one of the sort of topics you just touched upon while explaining a little bit of that is just made me think of a couple of questions that's been sort of hot topic recently at VRRC that we'll come on to when everybody starts pitting. There is Josh Martin. I'm sort of half hoping that once he's done racing around Oulton Park, he can go and sort out some of the roads outside it as well, because down Coach Road, it's so potholey, it's ridiculous. You could do with a builder to go down there and sort it out. But that is Josh Martin in the sim, obviously. hooking his way around the Oulton Park circuit. Slight delay on it. He's not still turning while he's on the straight, ladies and gentlemen. Well, to be fair, actually, when you go over that straight, you do bend over to the right-hand side a little bit and then go back towards the racing line. A big smash of the curves as he goes through his locks and the Knickerbrook chicane, managing to hook that one up until a nice run all the way up the hill, but he's not on the top three at the moment. He's still in the front two rows. In fact, no, he's not actually, because Jack Smith has gone up to third place, and Scott Bugner is in fourth as well. So some of the big hitters, Lewis, are starting to come into their own. You said it was getting a little bit quicker. We're starting that push lap is about to come into play, and I think a few of those drivers are starting to enjoy themselves out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to see the times tumble, and then we're going to see a whole lot of drivers coming into the pits for their second set of tyres and a bit of a fill up of fuel, and then they're going to go back out for a full push run at the end of the session, and the track's going to be at its best. And we're still, I think Elliott might have improved, and he's got even closer to Nicky Taylor now, but hasn't quite managed to pip him to provisional pole position at the moment. But it seems like everybody's getting a bit closer now. The gap was 4/10 back to third when Josh Martin set that lap, but now that 4/10 will cover you all the way back to 8th place. So as the track is gripping up, I think the cars are becoming a little better, as now we see improvements from pretty much everyone, and Elliott does now manage to get to the top of the times with that lap, as we see Nicky going for the pits, so he's going to be one of the first to start improving on his runs at the final part of the session here. Ethan Hill up in third place. Haven't seen much of Ethan in the way of top 3 finishes for a while. He won an event in the NASCAR special event back when I did do some commentating, and he won his first race in the Cayman Cup, which was many a month ago around the Nürburgring. He was all the way up against the pit wall fighting Joel Lask, I believe it was, into turn 1. Ethan managed to get the win there, and third place, less than 2/10 off the pace. He could be a dark horse for this one.
You could have said any name of any driver and any track there, and I would have believed you, Lewis, because you've got the encyclopedic knowledge and the memory bank to serve yourself well there with the statistics. But he is doing very well indeed, and it's quite actually just slightly surprising because he was 13th in practice overall in the session. So yeah, good that he's all the way up into third place. Elliott Dalton-Ayres and Nicky Taylor keep swapping positions. Ethan Hill is now into the pits. I imagine most people will dive into the pits. Jack Smith, though, he's probably a driver that won't want to go into the pits on this lap, even if he is supposed to, according to the strategy, because he's up in sector 1 and sector 2, and he doesn't come into the pits, so he's going to finish this one. Rear-wheel drive, obviously, which maybe was a slight advantage at Croft a week ago, but he jumps his way up onto the front row in second place, separating Elliott Dalton-Ayres and Nicky Taylor, the first time a driver has done that this session, and it was an absolutely rapid sector 3 purple for Jack Smith. And just having a look elsewhere, Andy Carroll's eked his way into the top 10 with 2 green sectors. Lee Morgan as well just set his fastest lap. He's in 13th place. Where's Oliver Gibson is the driver I was sort of looking for. There we go, in 7th position. A lot of drivers will come in for their pit lane, so they'll be going out there trying to warm the tyres up a little bit more. Now, the topic that you touched upon before, Lewis, that I wanted to dive maybe into for the next minute or two while everybody sort of warms their tyres back up and everything, while we're not seeing any improvements, basically, is you said when the track starts to grip up, you start to feel it in the wheel. Now, you can obviously drive a sim race and everything like that with any kind of steering wheel, obviously that it's PC compatible. So it could be a Logitech G29 or a cheaper Thrustmaster, as I used to. But the higher the direct drives and everything like that, they are sort of, if you do it a lot, they start to become worth their money, don't they? Because the fidelity and the detail you can feel through the wheel when you're driving around a circuit like Oulton Park is quite incredible, isn't it? You sort of get all the sensations, or most of the sensations you would in a real car, but through the wheel alone. And they may cost a lot of money, but to a lot of people, they're worth a lot, aren't they?
Absolutely. In fact, I would argue in some cases they're a lot better than in what you would get through the real life feedback, because a lot of the feedback you get from real life cars comes from what you feel through your body, not through your hands through the steering wheel. So in order to make the cars feel more drivable, because you're lacking that feeling from your whole body, they've had to kind of add that feeling into what you feel through your wrists through the steering wheel. So in terms of purely how it feels through the steering wheel, if you've got yourself a nice direct drive wheel, maybe you've got yourself a SimiCube, a VRS, a SimMagic, all of those kind of brands, or a Cammus, we'll get the sponsorship in. Oh look, the logo's popped up in the top right as well, perfect timing. But if you have yourself a direct drive wheelbase, you're probably getting more feedback than a real-life driver would get. One real-life driver who has dived into the YouTube scene very recently, Daniel Morad, did a quite extensive video on how he sets his force feedback up in sim racing to feel as close to his Mercedes GT3 or GT4, depending on which series he's doing. And a lot of the settings, he adds in a lot of settings which dampen the feeling down from what it could be. Because if you compare his settings to, say, Kevin Ellis Jr., who's a very, very quick esports driver, his settings get the most out of the feeling you could get from that wheelbase, and Daniel Morad's settings tone down that feeling to feel like his real car, because he's also got a motion platform which gives him a little bit of that sensation of movement through the body. But absolutely, you can feel a huge amount of information through the wheel on pretty much any wheel when you've got the force feedback set up and tuned nicely. We've done plenty of sessions at VRRC on how to set that feedback up nicely. It's one of the first things I go through with people in our coaching sessions is, have you got your force feedback set up so that you can feel the maximum possible information? Because then if you've got all the possible information, it's then just up to you making the right decision, and that decision might be how hard to press the brake, when to press the brake, how to trail off the brake, all that kind of thing. You've got the information there. And my initial point that brought this up, you can definitely feel in these cars, through any wheel, you can feel that extra grip and confidence on those laps as the tyres are getting towards the operating window. Because the best way I can describe it is, if you did exactly the same inputs from one lap to another, you would find much more grip, and you'd be much further away from the limit the more laps you did until it got up to 100% grip. So say you're going through turn one, it's a very quick left-hander. You turn the car in at the same speed, and every lap you'll end up further to the right of that exit curb because your tyres have more grip. And it's that principle, but you feel it through the steering wheel. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. I'm going to let Jack take over because I've talked for quite a while, and there's a minute left and it's getting exciting at the front.
It is indeed. Nicky Taylor's got the pole position, but Ethan Hill has got his way up into second place. Elliot Dalton-Ayres currently in third. So Taylor and Dalton-Ayres, they've been separated, but this time it's not by Jack Smith, it's by Ethan Hill. And, well, it's quite incredible, to be honest. As I said, Ethan Hill was 13th in practice, and he's made his way up into the front row of the grid. Now it's not guaranteed he's going to stay there. Carl Felvers has got 2 green sectors to his name. Jordan Taylor has. Josh Martin, but he went off on the final corner, I believe, so he didn't get that lap time to count. Andy Carroll as well, so 8th down to 11th. All those drivers are currently going a little bit quicker. Jordan Taylor jumps his way up to 4th place, just as I'm saying it. Kyle Felvers about to come through the final corner. He's not going to come into the pits. He's going to finish this lap because it's going to be a quick one. Andy Carroll up to 4th place. What a lap time by him. Kyle Felvers, well, he doesn't really improve, actually. It must have been a terrible last sector from him. Well, I say terrible, just a slower one. Not ideal, as the checker flag has dropped. Nicky Taylor has crossed the line, so is Ethan Hill. Neither of them can do anything to improve. Elliot Dalton-Ayres, he's gone green sector 1. This could be dangerous for the front two. As Dalton-Ayres looks like he's actually got a little bit more pace as a couple of them. That's Kyle Felvers cannoning past, I believe that was his teammate Jordan Taylor, going into the hairpin. Now, remember, just because the time has ticked down to 0, you can still finish this final lap as long as you haven't crossed the line as the checker flag is actually out. So Carl Felvers just about got away with that by the looks of it. Oliver Gibson, after doing so well the past 2 weeks in qualifying, doesn't look like he's going to be much improving. He's in 9th place at the moment, and he's going to stay there, if not get slightly worse, because the checker flag has come out for him. Jack Smith in 7th. Looks like the rear-wheel drive maybe not favouring Oulton Park quite as much as it was at Croft. Remember, all these cars are bopped to within an inch of their life, but sometimes physics takes over if that slow corners like it was at Croft. Andy Carroll's still out there, but no, he's in the pit lane, I think, Andy Carroll. He's been off the circuit anyway for the first 2 sectors. Ethan Hill's in the pit, so his day is done. Elliot Dalton-Ayres has got his way up to 2nd place. Ethan Hill is down to 3rd. Andy Carroll's in 5th at the moment. Jordan Taylor is Jack Smith there in 4th place now with a purple sector 3. Joel Lask went quite quickly in 7th place. Carl Felbus is only just inside the top 10. He won't be very happy about that at all. Jordan Taylor looks like he's going to come into the pits. Yes, he is. So that is all she wrote for qualifying. Nikki Taylor, Elliot Dalton-Ayres will start on the front row. Ethan Hill and Jack Smith in row 2. And Andy Carroll and Jordan Taylor on row 3. I'll round out the top 10. Joel Lask in 7th. Scott Bugner in 8th. Oliver Gibson 9th. Carl Felvis just inside the top 10. Josh Martin outside the top 10. He's in 11th. But we'll speak to our pole sitter after this very quick break. And welcome back to Oulton Park just before race one, I should say, of round 4 actually here at all. And it looks like we've got a interview with the driver we haven't spoken to for quite some time. And I'm not trying to rub salt in the wounds there, but Nikki Taylor, you've been on holiday for the past 2 weeks, and you're back here suddenly in 1st place, pole position. That must be a pretty good feeling.
Yeah, it's quite good. I mean, I'm not known for my qualifying by any stretch of the imagination, and especially at Oulton, which is a track that I hate, to get pole is quite good. So yeah, I'm happy.
You hate Oulton, that's blasphemy in a VRRC community, so I'll let it slide for this time. But you were saying before you came on live that you were loving the weight. You don't have much weight on board because you've obviously fallen down the order somewhat since being on holiday. So is it a bit of a relief to come back and not have that much pressure on you?
Yeah, I was initially quite annoyed with like having to miss 2 rounds, and then I kind of thought about while I was on holiday with, hang on, I'm losing like 30 kg here, so I'm quite happy with it. So yeah, so now I'm on 20 kg, but obviously the downside of that is I now have to hear Kyle in our Google Meets going, I'm slow because of my weight. So it is what it is, but at the end of the day, Kyle's still done quite a good lap considering he's got that weight and only like 3/10 off. But it's just if this was any other championship with how tight the times are, he would be further up. But it is what it is, and I'm just happy to come away with the pole.
I was going to say, I mean, yeah, Oulton Park, it's a very hilly circuit, isn't it? There's quite a few slow, medium corners as well. Does the weight really take a massive effect? Because I know, obviously, people are going to point, and I know Lewis Edwards already has, to Jack Smith, but obviously he's in a slightly different handling car with the rear-wheel drive and everything like that, and we've seen Colin Turkington over the years absolutely ace Oulton Park with that rear-wheel drive. Are you sort of hoping that you can convert that lightweight into race victories? Do you think you can take it to Elliott Dalton Ayres and keep ahead of him?
I hope so. I mean, Oulton, I'm lucky with Oulton being one of them tracks that you can literally just hold the inside line or hold the middle of the track and just keep your position. But it is what it is. I've got to see how they come through. Jack's going to be lightning quick off the start, so I wouldn't even be surprised if he comes past us by the first corner. But it is what it is. We've got to see how it goes, and my weight feels nice, so I'm just going to focus on my own race.
Who have you got cheering you on there on the bed as well? What's the bear's name?
It's just Ted. He's just my mascot. I saw Jack do it, so I thought, I'll do it. And some of his speed has obviously rubbed off on me, so I think he's working.
I was going to say, good old Ted the Teddy. I have to say, it's not the most inventive name there, Nicky, but we'll let it slide.
No, that's just been handed down by generations, so that's the only reason why he's Ted. But yeah, he's working, and hopefully he gets a good view of my win in the first race.
Oh, big talk there, Nicky. Well, good luck for it. We'll let you go and prepare a little bit, and yeah, good luck. And we'll see if we speak to you after race one.
Cool, cheers.
Right, and that is Nicky Taylor then on pole position. As I said, Lewis, we haven't spoken to Nicky for quite some time. He's still in the Discord, but I'll say it anyway because he'll probably watch us back regardless. And not necessarily because he hasn't been here. He's obviously been on holiday, as we mentioned a couple of times, but also he hasn't exactly been at the sort of top end of the pace either. He has had a bit of poor luck here, there, and everywhere, but it's nice to see him right at the sharp end again.
Yeah, I think Nicky himself will happily say he's much more at home in a front-wheel drive car, and that Honda is indeed front-wheel drive, and he is back on pole position, which, well, put two and two together. He looks more confident in the car. He's driving with that confidence he does in real life, and I just feel like we're getting the same Nicky Taylor that we got from the Cayman Cup, but back now in this championship, and he loves some fighting talk, doesn't he, Jack?
He does, yeah. He's quite confident as well. And to be fair, as a racing driver, you do need to be confident. You need to be able to sort of put your words out there, but you need to follow them up with some decent action as well. And that's exactly what Nicky Taylor tends to do. He's, I used to say back when he first joined the championship and everything like that, if the race is a little bit dull and you want some excitement, put the camera on Nicky Taylor and we'll see what he does. He's an elbow-out style of racer, but to be fair, this is touring cars and everybody seems to have adopted that style of racing as well. Right, we've got 30 seconds before we go into the race, so I'll run you down your top 10 once more, top 11 actually. Nicky Taylor is on pole, as we just spoken to him. Elliott Dalton Ayres in second place. Now, we know he was very quick. He was on pole for quite a substantial amount of that qualifying, so expect to see him going very well today. Ethan Hill, surprise package for me, and Jack Smith, that rear-wheel drive is going to be rapid into turn one. Andy Carroll, Jordan Taylor's in sixth place. Seventh is Joel Lass. Scott Bugner in the other Hyundai is in eighth. Oliver Gibson's in ninth, and we've got six red lights, engine notes are rising. That can only mean one thing. We are racing, and it's a slow start for what I believe was third place on the grid. Ethan Hill. Jack Smith gets a decent start, but maybe not as good as Nicky Taylor was expecting him to have. And Nicky Taylor leads the way. He's absolutely flown away from Elliot Dalton-Ayres. He's got a car length in between, which in touring cars term is actually flying away. Smith is in third place. Ethan Hill managed to hold on to fourth. It just didn't seem his reactions were quite as good. Jack Smith's rear wheel drive is going to be hoping to take advantage of that out of the slow hairpin as well. Obviously slow corners equals rear wheel drive heaven, but he's going for the outside line as somebody's gone for the very outside line. That's Joel Lask plummeting down the order as he went over towards the shell hairpin a bit further down the road. Obviously this isn't GT racing, so we're not going quite that far at Oulton Park. We want to be able to go back towards the majority of the circuit, and Jack Smith didn't make that move stick for the time being. Carl Felvers trying to go around the outside. Who's that going straight on? Andy Carroll, and somebody else going very sideways. That's Scott Bugner in the Hyundai, just about holding on to the position, but a lovely cutback move from Carl Felvers. Running up the hill means I think Kyle into Druids is going to have that inside line, and have a look at Jordan Taylor versus Jack Smith as well, just ahead of him. It's going to be very tight, and there goes Jordan Taylor on Jack Smith. You don't normally see overtakes going into Druids, and I tell you what, that's very impressive indeed from the young Taylor. Ethan Hill and Oliver Gibson are in 5th and 6th position, which means Kyle Felvers is in 7th, but just ahead of the person he was battling, Scott Bugner. So Kyle won that little battle as Jordan won his own. HFT running well, Lewis.
They are at the moment. Nicky seems to have made a break for it at the moment, but we're seeing Kyle and Scott getting really stuck into it. Some nice clean battling so far. I think Andy Carroll might have had a little tap from behind, which you could see Scott with a brilliant save through the chicane. I heard some gravel there somewhere, so I think someone's been off. That's Ethan Hill.
Oh no! Ethan Hill from qualifying in, what was it, 3rd position on the grid. Poor start off the race, and then he's plummeted into the gravel trap by the looks of it on the outside of Cascades. That's going to really hurt his race. It's going to hurt his evening, isn't it? Lewis, obviously he's got the reverse grid, so starting or finishing right at the back for race 1 isn't always the end of the world for race 2. He could still be on for a potential race win, actually, because a lot of the quicker the cars won't be around him for that reverse grid, but it's not what he wanted. In terms of picking up points, it's going to be very, very difficult now for the championship. But as I said, he's going for that prod. He's going for that race win potentially in race number 2. Carl Felvers just behind Scott Bugner. Then obviously Scott Bugner and Oliver Gibson look like they were on the hybrid, pulling away from Kyle. There he is in the bottom right-hand corner. It looks the hybrid's going to play a big role here. It's not necessarily about going down on the straight, so I'd say, Lewis. It's about getting up the hill and carrying that weight as well, almost managing the fact that you've got 50 kilograms on board or something like that for Kyle Felvers and the likes, and just having to use it to stay competitive.
Yeah, I think those with ballast are going to be definitely wanting to use it on the exits to try and power out of the corner. The advantage they have is because their car weighs slightly more, it will have slightly better traction getting out of the corners, which means they'll actually be able to deploy the hybrid probably a fraction of a second sooner than their rivals with less weight in the car, but they will then suffer through the corners. So it may help them defend that little bit of traction on the exit, but through the corners, that's where they're going to be losing out the most. And it's things like the chicane where they're really going to be struggling, I think, to get that twitchiness and that direction change that you want through there. I think that's where they're losing out potentially the most.
Yeah, and Julie Bradshaw put in the YouTube chat saying that Kyle was on 50 kilograms. That's where I got my information from, Julie. I thought I'll just quickly use that statistic rather than actually looking at the actual weight, and turns out we were wrong. So he's on 40 kilograms. Thank you very much, Rich, who was in the YouTube chat correcting me there. There's so much going on the track. I didn't look at my little notes. I do apologise about that. Here is Smith, obviously, all the way down. Nathan Smith, I was about to call him Nicky Smith. Is Nathan Smith down in 13th position at the moment. Now, it's interesting, Nathan Smith here, I would say, because he's right in between two drivers who we'd say are slightly underperforming. Josh Martin is in 12th, and Joel Lask is in 14th for the time being, but it looks like he's going for a move for that 13th position, and on the hybrid going into the first corner, indeed Joel Lask gets the job done, so he's up into 13th. Where is Ethan Hill? How's his progression going recently? He's in 17th at the moment. Again, not really making no kind of moves, but Smith trying to lead on the outside of Cascades. I don't think that's a very sensible manoeuvre, and neither is that by Ben Jemison. He went really around the outside and unfortunately ends up falling down the order. So Ethan Hill isn't that far away from the battle we've just been watching, the likes of Josh Martin, Joel Lask, and Nathan Smith, he could still come out with a fairly decent points haul here. What do you think his chances are at getting towards the top 10, Lewis?
Well, I think from qualifying, Ethan's definitely shown he's got the pace, and if the cars in front of him keep nudging each other and putting themselves offline, that is most certainly going to help him out. I think at this point, Ethan could very easily think, no, I'm just going to stay near the back for that reverse grid pole position. All he has to do for that is just to stay on the lead lap. But I think with the lottery that is the reverse grid races, he's definitely better off trying to push his way back up through the field. And the gaps are quite close. There's nothing more than 2.5 seconds between him and that top 10. The only big gap that's starting to open up is between Andy Dorman and Sam Zero in that fight for 10th place. So as we look at across the line, last lap he was 0.6 quicker than Paul Laramie, and quite a bit quicker than that than Nathan Smith. So he's definitely got the pace on these two cars in front, and I think when he clears them, he's going to be able to make even more progress.
I was going to say, it may have been 0.6 quicker than Paul Laramie, but he caught up to Paul Laramie, didn't he? So it probably would have been a lot quicker if he hadn't been held up. We heard Nicky Taylor saying that Oulton Park is a difficult place to overtake on. That is the classic trope with Oulton Park. We've seen, oh my days, and Ethan Hill showing us exactly that. Even when you're trying to get the cutbacks out of some of the slower corners through the hairpin and everything, it's just not easy going into the Hislop chicane. Again, no space on the inside means you're not going to be overtaking there. Jordan Taylor's done probably the most ambitious move out there, and it's the only one that's really worked, going at the inside of Druids, and that is, again, quite easy to defend. It just so happens that Jack Smith didn't think Jordan Taylor would actually go and try it, so he didn't bother defending it. But yeah, very difficult around here to sort of make moves forward. That's why Ethan Hill will probably be slightly annoyed with how it went. We were talking about, well, Lewis just mentioned gaps between drivers. Have a look at the gap between first and second place. Nicky Taylor to Elliott Dalton-Ayres, 2.1 seconds, and then back to Jordan Taylor as well, another 2.5 seconds between Dalton-Ayres and Jordan Taylor. So, I mean, to be fair to them, Lewis, shout out to the top two. They've absolutely driven away from the competition, haven't they? Yeah,
they absolutely have. Nicky he's taken his couple of weeks off, and this is a statement of intent. He said he was going to win the race in commentary, and most of the time he's said that it hasn't actually ended the way he said it would. But at the moment, with still more than half race distance to go, he does look very much in control of this one. And Elliott Dalton-Ayres in second place looks equally as in control of second place. And I think the real battle is going to be between Jordan Taylor and Jack Smith, as it looks like Jordan is burning through his hybrid allocation a bit quicker than Jack is at the moment.
Yes, well, my feed's a little touch pixelated, so I tend to not ignore the hybrids, but I can just about see whether they're in double figures or single figures, and that's about as detailed as it goes. What is the hybrid situation currently then, Lewis?
So currently, Jack Smith has only used one hybrid activation in the whole race, and that was off the line to make sure he had an even start with those around him. We've got a little timing glitch there. So don't worry, I don't think somebody's just randomly...
no one's crashed off. No one's crashed off, I don't think.
Yeah, nobody's dipped off there, so we're all good.
How is Nicky Taylor and Elliott Dalton-Ayres in terms of hybrids? What's the difference between those two, really?
So Nicky has used one less hybrid than Elliott, and Jordan has one more than him that he's just using now to defend from Jack Smith, who, despite still not using that hybrid, is closing in a couple of tenths, but it's gone back out now that Jordan has used that hybrid. But it looks like Jack is bringing himself into contention by just pure pace and not using that hybrid and saving it to make a more meaningful inroad later on in the race.
Very interesting indeed. So not much between the top three, but then Jack Smith having a potentially big advantage towards the end of this little battle. Now here is Carl Felvis trying to geek an advantage over Scott Bugner, and going into Druids. Wow, he got the job done before he even got into Druids, didn't he, up the hill and under the bridge. Fantastic stuff by Carl Felvis. I said it was difficult to overtake round here. You've got to be inventive, you've got to be brave, you've got to be slightly ambitious. Well, Carl Felvis was all three of them, and very good at the same time. quite a lot of conviction in that move. So well done to Kyle Felvers. He's eked his way into the top 6. I believe he had qualified in 10th place, came on the YouTube chat and started complaining about weight. Well, he stopped complaining, hasn't he? And he actually decided that he wants to drive the car that he's given, or drive the car that he's earned, I should say, because he only has the weight because he's high up in the championship. I wouldn't mind being high up in the championship if it meant I had a little bit more weight. And I'm sure a lot of other drivers would agree. So I think Kyle has decided, you know what, it's time to get on with this. Race pace is my sort of deal, and he's clearly proving that he can get that car hustled around Oulton Park maybe a bit faster than he was thinking he could before. He's got Oliver Gibson just ahead of it. Well, I say just ahead of him. He's a substantial margin ahead of him. 4 odd seconds before the back of the BMW really comes into play. So Scott Bugner, I'm sure, Lewis, will be very interested in trying to get past on Kyle Felvers. As I said before, I can't actually see the hybrid allocations. What's the deal between Kyle Felvers, Scott Bugner and Andy Dorman? Are they all very equal? Well,
despite actually making that overtake, Kyle is 2 hybrids up on Scott, so he's made that pass and he's got hybrids in hand. One thing I've noticed from Scott, we saw at Brands Hatch he won by using the hybrid when it counted and battling away with Oliver Gibson and keeping him behind despite not using the hybrid. Scott's on the other end of that this evening. At the moment, he's burning up his hybrid, trying to repass Kyle, and at the moment hasn't managed to make a meaningful inroad at the moment. He's still stuck behind him now. I think he might have to change strategy. He is still within 2/10 of him, so it's not like he's dropped back a lot, but he's going to need a change of strategy, I think, and to spring a move somewhere Kyle isn't expecting it to get past again.
Yeah, if anybody out there is wondering how what all the sort of allocation of ballast and everything is like here at VRRC, it's a fairly complicated affair, I'll be honest. It's why we never really go too in-depth into it. But what we do have is a driver ranking system which helps allocate how much weight is on there. I think half is based on championship standings and half is based on the driver rankings. And the driver rankings make for quite interesting. I won't break it all down because it's very complicated. Rich has spent many months and even years, I think, trying to perfect this system to make it as even as humanly possible. But it also keeps track of where everybody finishes in terms of podium positions and everything like that. And at the moment, as far as I can tell, Lewis, you might be able to correct me slightly if I'm wrong here, but the overarching theme is the fact that actually on the driver ranking system of everybody who competes in the VRRC currently, Kyle Felvers is the top performing driver of anyone. He's won 17.5% of the races he's raced in. He's come second in 18.4% of the races he's come in, and third in 10%. So very, very impressive. His pole position time, his qualifying has never been strong. He's only polled it 7.8% of the time. And if you compare that to Eric Axelsson, that's 18%, or nearly 19% Eric Axelsson is polled in the amount of races he's racing. So very impressive indeed. Kyle is not necessarily, the point being, a fast qualifier or fastest lap driver, but his racecraft, he can always seem to get towards the front, Lewis, which ultimately is where the points are scored.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a bit of a change with the driver ranking. Rich changed some of the values around in between last week and this week, and Kyle was already set to overtake Eric anyway, I think, had we kept the old formula, if you like. But he's overtaken him anyway now with the new formula. But it's taken into account how many races you've done at VRRC a little differently to how it did before. But
it can all get quite complicated, can't it? And we'll come back to that in a minute, because I just realised Scott Bugner has made a move through Druids on Kyle Felvers now. Kyle on the hybrid, trying to go the long way round through the final corner. You're going to put your car in a dangerous position there, Kyle. You don't want to cut across someone's nose. And luckily, he gets away with it. But yeah, there wasn't exactly room for that move through that corner, unfortunately. Scott Bugner holds on to the place then. Kyle lives to fight another day. If he was in a rear-wheel drive car, my goodness, he'd be in some kind of wall. And he looks very, very animated in his seat there, doesn't he? But he's currently now in 7th place. He's got Andy Dorman just behind, ready to to pounce as well if any mistakes are made between the two drivers ahead. Carl Felvis getting yet again a little bit irate. He needs to calm himself down and think about how he's going to get back ahead rather than the move that's just occurred. And he's going for that cutback because it looks like Scott Bugner's ran slightly wide at the corner, going towards the Hislop chicane. Scott Bugner comes across the road. Is he going to go back across? He shouldn't. Carl Felvis's manoeuvre on the hybrid as well. He's going to be a full car length ahead. Is he going to have the position? Yes, he has. Under braking, using the hybrid. He's back up into 6th place. It's going to get a little bit spicy as they go up the hill. I would imagine Scott Bugner would initiate that hybrid system. Oh no, he's waiting. He's waiting. He's biding his time. He's not worried about going into Druids in the lead of this little battle, maybe into the final corner where it's a little bit of an easier overtaking opportunity. But equally, Carl Felvis will probably be very keen to defend it. Andy Dorman, as I said, and Andy Carroll just lurking in the background there. Oh, and Andy Dorman's going for Scott Bugner. No, he's just flashing the lights. My goodness, this is going to get a bit intense, Lewis.
It is, and it's got intense a bit further up the road as well, because as that's happening, Jack Smith and Jordan Taylor are going at it. But I'll tell you what, I'm definitely tempted to pay for some lip reading lessons so we can figure out what Kyle has been saying.
Oh, mate, more HFT drama as well there. Sorry to cut across you, Lewis, but I thought Jordan Taylor, was going straight off. Jordan Smith, now that would make one hell of a driver, wouldn't it? Jack Smith and Jordan Taylor put together, but it looks like the two BMWs, of course, somewhat of a sandwich with Jordan Taylor. This is going to be very interesting to see who gets onto the podium. There is Jordan Taylor, I believe that is, isn't it? Oh, did he just... Did he just do something that we shouldn't have seen on camera? I don't know. It was slightly pixelated. He raised his hand, and I thought maybe an expletive was exchanged as well. But Jordan Taylor currently in 4th place. He's not quite got onto the back of Jack Smith, who we discussed before. Has plenty of hybrids left. Is that still the case?
Jack's been using it to good effect. He is blinking a little bit, rubber banding there, so connection might be a little bit of an issue there for Jack, but he was massively up on the hybrid, but he's now down to 6. He's burnt those hybrids a bit quicker than Jordan has, and he's made the move stick. And behind, Oliver Gibson is now starting to get interested in picking up 4th place as well. And you can see that Jordan is a bit rattled by that one from Jack Smith. We only caught the end of it, so we don't know if there was any contact beforehand, but he's very not happy with his current situation at the moment, as you can see from the camera.
No, Jordan Taylor actually got purple in Sector 3. That's how much he's using the hybrid now as well. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes away with the fastest lap, which of course counts for 3 points in this championship. A little wipe of the eyebrow there for Jordan Taylor as he's got yet another BMW. It's almost deja vu, isn't it, for him? 2 in 2 laps, effectively. He's starting to get hunted down, and Oliver Gibson is no slouch. Okay, Jack Smith has holds the bragging rights at the moment for that team, but that doesn't mean that Oliver Gibson is slow. In fact, he's got his own pole position a couple of weeks ago. I think it was Brands Hatch, potentially. Oliver Gibson got that pole, which means he's not exactly one to take it lying down. And, well, Jordan Taylor is getting a bit of a baptism of fire in this championship. This is the problem, isn't it, really, Lewis? When you jump into a championship like this, if you're already quite quick, you've got a lot of learning to do because we've got so many competitive drivers. In most championships, you would think, okay, if I'm quite quick, you might be in the top 5. There might only be 3 or 4 drivers that you really have to contend with. Here, if you're quick, well, there's 10 other people who are very quick as well, and you have to compete with all of them at different stages. Yeah,
it's much more about the racecraft than it is about the single lap pace in the VRRC.
As Kyle Felvis demonstrates in his driver ranking.
Yes, absolutely. Kyle has mainly got there from actually the reverse grid races. There's another column in the driver ranking that's positions gained, and that just totals up race 1 and race 2 of every round of every championship we've had for the last 4 championships total, I believe. And he has the most. He makes up most of the driver ranking from dragging a good race 2 result out, whether he's got the pace to be at the front or not. But something's happened to Scott Bugner.
Yeah, Scott Bugner down at the hairpin. I just noticed it on my track map, actually. He was another one who's going for the GT line all the way down to the bottom of Shell Hairpin. And he's rejoining in 14th position, just behind Ethan Hill, who's had quite a good recovery drive up to 13th, it has to be said. But that's gutting for Scott Bugner on what will be potentially the penultimate lap. Yeah, penultimate lap, because Nicky Taylor's coming up to the final corner now, and we've still got 20-odd seconds left. So there is Nicky Taylor on the hybrid. Looks like Elliot Dalton has run out of his hybrids. Jack Smith is pulled away quite nicely from Jordan Taylor by the tune of 1.2 seconds. And just to finish off Lewis's chat about the driver rankings and stuff like that, me and Andy have said since since we started commentating together, really, that the championships are quite often won or lost based on how good a good a race you can have in race number 2 in those reverse grids. So Carl clearly showing why he's potential championship winning material every single season. There is Josh Martin, who has been a championship winner, of course, getting ahead of Craig Curtis, I believe. I want to say it's Craig. Yeah, it is Craig Curtis in 8th. The fight for 8th position. Craig Curtis getting back alongside him, but around the outside of Cascades. Always going to be a bit of an ambitious move to try and get past the Astra, and Josh Martin holds on to that, and he's got a hybrid system to use as well. I think he's just used it though. Not sure, it's still quite pixelated, but he's gone very wide. There's no room for a cutback or a little lunge there from Craig Curtis, who actually followed him on his line as well, almost doing it in sympathy. But we have to focus probably a little bit further forward, because Nicky Taylor's just coming through Druids for the final time this race, and what a race has been for the pole sitter. He's been fantastic, lights the flag, victory as long as he can survive the final corner. He's got 5 seconds to play with between himself and Elliot Dalton-Ayres. I'm sure he wouldn't like to use any of them, but there he is with Ted cheering him on in the background. It's Nicky Taylor taking the victory here at Oulton Park, and he's very pleased about it. I think he was posing a little bit there for the camera as well, giving it the old number 1 with the finger. Elliot Dalton-Ayres comes home in 2nd place, with Jack Smith, the BMW, coming home for yet one more podium to his name, and potentially looking to extend that championship lead with that rear-wheel drive around Oulton Park. All that weight on board seems to be helping him in a drag race to the line. Who was finishing ahead there? It was Josh Martin against Andy Dorman, I believe it was. No, actually, it was Craig Curtis, sorry, because, of course, we were watching them before. Craig Curtis ended up getting that 8th place ahead of Josh Martin. So, yeah, great drag race to the line. Carl Pelvis was in 6th, Andy Carroll in 7th, as I just said, Craig Curtis in 8th. Josh Martin comes home in 9th, and then Andy Dorman was in 10th position. And as the rest of the drivers start to filter through, we're going to cut to a very short break before we have a chat to our top 3. And we've got 3 drivers to chat to this time. Of course, it's 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and we're going to start off with our race winner. And we've already had one chat with him today because it was our pole man as well. Nicky Taylor. Nicky, you must be, doubly pleased. And Ted must even be pretty proud of you as well.
Yeah, that was all right. It kind of had to fend off Elliot for the first corner, and then once I'd done that, I just got my head down. I started using push to pass quite early on, which I don't think is very, very known, because considering Jack and everyone, when they've been in the front in the first race, they've just not used it till the last few laps. But I used it, got a gap, and then managed to just push on.
I was going to say, we'll have a chat to Jack about his use of the hybrid, because it was slightly different. Elliot actually used the same sort of strategy as you did. You were just basically trading those hybrids every single lap, but it worked to your favour, obviously, as well. We just came into the chat, and you were saying that obviously you didn't really love Oulton Park, but it sort of worked to your advantage, which is exactly what you said in the interview. Difficult to overtake, and once you start hot lapping, you're clearly very quick.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been quick around here. I don't know what it is, but in my first ever mini race around here, I literally got 3rd in quali. So I don't know what it is around here. I don't like the track, but possibly it's just the thing with tracks I hate, I go quick round. But yeah, I literally, when I was doing my laps of push pass, it was strange because when I done one with 2 pass, I was just as quick as when I done one with 5. So that's definitely noted for race 2.
I was going to say, race 2, a little bit more difficult for the reasons we've just said, actually. It's very difficult to pass around here. You have to be very patient. As a driver, we've quite often watched you and thought patience isn't really the word that comes to mind when we see Nicky Taylor battling through the pack. Is that something that's going to have to be learnt very quickly in this race?
I know when to be patient when it comes to it. I show that in my real life racing, so patience should be fine. Yeah, patience should be fine, but I think we're going to have some major like collisions in this, and we might even have our first safety car of the season. So it is what it is. I'm just going to have to get through and just get through cleanly.
Well, nice to know that when you actually have to pay for the damages, you can turn the patience on, of course. But Nicky, congratulations on the race victory. Maybe we'll be speaking to you a little later on if you can overcome the Oulton Park curse and actually carve through the order.
Hopefully.
Right, that's Nicky Taylor coming to have another chat with us. Always a pleasure. But we've got our second place man as well, Elliot Oulton, and I have to say congratulations, Elliot. But all in all, looked a bit of a dull race, I'll be honest.
It did a little bit. I mean, the first couple of corners, like Nicky said, I was trying to get past him, but he got away, and then like you said, just trading hybrids. But Nicky was too quick; I couldn't catch him. So just settled in, used the hybrids every now and then, and just had a dull race.
Did you have a look? Because we didn't see what happened to Ethan Hill. Now, we know we got a bad start off the line, and maybe Jack Smith is actually a better driver to ask for it, but we saw him disappear. Was that a little bit of a relief for you, knowing that, such a quick driver was sort of one down, only a few more to beat?
I have no idea what was happening behind. I was very focused on Nicky ahead, but I had no idea what happened to him.
Well, fair enough. Next race, obviously, we just asked Nicky Taylor what his plan is. Is patience the name of the game for you for race number 2 as well? Or do you think you're going to be actually starting to make some more moves and thinking more about the championship, getting those points as well? Because you're not that far behind. You're only in 5th place.
Do a bit of both, to be honest. I mean, of course, patience is key. I don't want to be, sending everyone and barging them out of the way. But although I do need the points to stay with the top 5, top 4 to, increase the championship challenge.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I love dangling the carrot just in front, just saying, because every driver's going to say, oh, no, I'll just be patient, it'll be all right. And then just to remind them, there are championship points on offer, But good luck, Elliot, for race number 2. Potentially having a chat with you a little later on, but well done on the 2nd place.
Thank you.
And last but not least, in fact, not last in the race at all, 3rd place is Jack Smith. Now, Jack, it wasn't as boring a race for you, but you had a slightly different hybrid approach, didn't you? You sort of did the approach that effectively you've been doing all season, which is saving them up to the end.
Yeah, I just really wanted to settle into that race. I knew I couldn't take too much curb here like the front-wheel drives can, so I wanted to sort of just get in a rhythm, and I was looking to stay behind Jordan, but I caught up in the end, so I thought I'd make a move, and the plan was to stay in 4th and try and nab fastest lap, but that changed when I overtook Jordan, so plan was just hold the hybrids till the end, and then use them all, try and get a good lap in the end at the end for the extra 3 points.
We actually saw the tail end of the move. We didn't really see how it all got charged up. We were, I think, focusing on another battle. We also saw Jordan Taylor's reaction to it, and he looked, I wouldn't say displeased, but he looked a little bit rattled by it. What was the move like?
Yeah, I mean, I used hybrid out of the final corner and got a really good run. Went to the inside and got the lead, but rubbish X out of turn 1. And then we're side by side going into Cascades, and I think Jordan just turned in a little bit too early, as I couldn't make an apex from where he turned in. So, that's where the contact came from. I think that's why he's a little bit upset. So, on the replays, you'll be able to see it. But, it was a good bit of racing, to be fair. So, looking forward to the next race.
I was going to say, in the championship-wise, I just had asked Elliot Oulton very quickly. We've only got a minute left. That's another whole load of points for you. I mean, race 2, you could almost take the hit a little bit. Is that the plan, or are you hoping to get those championship points and pushing as hard as you can?
Plan to take it steady, just try not to have any incidents like we did at Croft, because that would have ended up with a win at Croft if I didn't have the incidents on the first lap. So, just take it lap by lap and try and keep out of trouble.
Well, lessons learnt there by the sounds of it. Jack, congratulations on the 3rd place, and we look forward to seeing your progress in race 3. Two, even race 2, aren't we? Right, that was Jack Smith. He's and all 3 of the podium sitters, actually. We've only got 20 seconds, actually, until the start of this race. It'll see Kenny Press on pole position, Stuart Vickers in second, with Ben Jemison and Nathan Smith. The drivers to look out for, in my opinion, will be Ethan Hill. He starts in 5th. Can he survive the first couple of corners? And can he go forward? Well, we'll have to wait and see, because the engine notes are rising. The 6 lights are on. And that means one thing, ladies and gentlemen. We are racing here at Oulton Park for race number 2. The reverse grid race, of course. And Ethan Hill gets an equally poor start than he did in race number 1. And he's straight on the hybrid, even though I think he's just wheel spinning. He didn't quite get the grip. He didn't get the traction. He has survived, I think, in 5th position. But it wasn't exactly vintage stuff by himself, the Honda driver, I should say. Kenny Press holds on to pole. He's quite good at doing that. He's quite experienced in the reverse grid pole positions as Kenny Press. As there's that Ethan Hill sliding off the court. No, it's Ben Jemison, sorry. It's Ben Jemison absolutely sliding, as a few of the drivers have made contact there with the BMW, just about surviving. Craig Curtis, Elliot Dalton Ayres has fallen down, Andy Dorman as well, and I think that's Craig Curtis, no, Chris Blakely, my apologies, as drivers are still falling off the circuit. An HFT driver goes wide, that's Jordan Taylor. Jack Smith is up to 13th, whereas everybody else that we're trying to keep an eye on. Ethan Hill's up to 4th, and Alok Iyengar's into 6th position, just getting ahead of Joel Lask, with the swapping positions into the Hislop chicane, and we have a virtual safety car, first of the season. I think Nicky Taylor even went and called that one. Lewis, I'll tell you what, my voice is already starting to break. That was a very, very hectic opening couple of corners.
It was. They all managed to make it through turn 1 all okay, but they went through Cascades, and then on the exit it became a bit un-okay quite quickly. Ethan Hill up to 4th, Scott Bugner and Joel Lask in 5th and 6th. They'll definitely be ones to look out for. The big losers were Ben Jemison, Andy Dorman, Chris Blakey and Lee Morgan. They all got caught up in that, and they've now been shuffled from towards the front end down towards the rear of the field. But I think watch out for the LB Motorsport pair and Ethan Hill for a battle for the win, and we'll see if anybody else further back can catch them up. But I think we're going to get underway shortly.
Yeah, the safety car is ending, so it's Kenny Press's job to lead them away. And as I said before, he's quite experienced at doing that in race number 2, which is quite often where we get the safety cars. And he's pulled a massive margin ahead of Stuart Vickers, who's got a train of cars, quite a lot of which we've actually mentioned already, going into turn 1, fighting for that 2nd place. Stuart Vickers and Nathan Smith, and then hold on to your hats, because here comes the rest of the field. Ethan Hill trying to charge his way through the inside of the Cascade, trying to follow a driver who's making contact. I think Ethan Hill, that's exactly what he was hoping for. The LB Motorsport drivers, though, hunting them down as well. Joel Lask and Scott Bugner, we know there's no team orders between them. We've seen over the years them fighting quite close for it, as Ethan Hill does get into 2nd place. And I think that contact between Nathan Smith and whoever was in 3rd place challenging him is exactly what Ethan Hill was hoping for, wasn't it? It just parted the ways and the apex was there, and he just nicely drove into 2nd place, thank you very much, as he tries to make his own track up, going through the Hislop chicane and up through Knickerbrook. Right, where else are we supposed to be looking? Stuart Vickers was the other driver, wasn't it? He's well down the order. It looks like he's had a big off somewhere as well. In fact, there is Stuart Vickers, not having the time of his life, unfortunately, the Phoenix Sim Racing driver. Reese Bell is in the YouTube chat. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to join us for today. Hope you're feeling a bit better, Reese. I'm sure that scene won't be making you feel any better. There's Elliot Dalton Ayres, who obviously got a podium. Hopefully that will help. He's in 12th place, making good, steady progress through the order. There's Jack Smith, just trying to get ahead of Alok Iyengar, but actually Oliver Gibson has got himself ahead of stayed ahead of Jack Smith. He's in 8th. Now Jack Smith is up to 9th. Jordan Taylor is in 11th place, a little further away. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Lewis, the hybrids have been used a little bit more plentiful in the first opening stages by the LB Motorsport, but we'll focus on that in a minute, because we've got more action out on the circuit. And around a circuit that doesn't promote overtaking, we're seeing quite a lot of it here, or at least attempted, aren't we? Joel Lask into 2nd place for the time being with that hybrid assistance. Ethan Hill diving on the brakes into the hairpin and getting the traction out the corner as well. Really well done. And Ethan Hill back on the hybrid to try and get a little bit of a gap. And see himself and the 3rd place driver, Kenny Press, ahead of them. I imagine will start to hold them up somewhat, unless they keep fighting over each other, basically. Jordan Taylor's got ahead of Alok Iyengar, and there is Nicky Taylor. What on earth? Do you have any idea what happened to Nicky Taylor there, Lewis?
I think he may have had contact trying to pull a move on somebody, But it looks like
Speaking of which,
that's
sorry,
contact.
That's a massive bit of contact. That's a massive attempted move. Joel Lasky and Ethan Hill do make that unfortunate incident happen, and Joel Lasky doesn't go into the wall, which is, I mean, thank God. But he rejoins in a rather tricky position there. He's going to try and get back up to speed, but he's going to fall well down the order. He's going to hit the braking zone, and he's right in between Elliot Dalton-Ayres and Alok Iyengar, right in the thick of it. Scott Bugner tries to return the favour, though, on Ethan Hill and redeem his teammates. He's up into second place, going through the first corner. Can Ethan Hill get that cut back? He loves to give it a go. It's going to be very difficult going into Cascades. It's going to be, he's on the outside into Cascades. It's going to be ambitious. It's not going to happen. But hello, who's that knocking at your door? It's Kyle Felvis.
Yeah, Kyle's caught them up because they've been too busy fighting. I thought after the contact between Ethan and Joel, that would give Ethan a break, whether the contact was his fault or not. It ended up well for him, but Scott managed to immediately get on the back of Ethan and make the move stick. So now it's he who is in prime position to make a move on Kenny Press when they eventually get there, which they are doing at the moment. Even with this battling, they're beginning to reel Kenny in quite a bit now. So as much as it's nice to see Kenny at the front, I think he is going to be reeled in fairly shortly by this trio of cars. And Scott's actually pulled quite a bit through the chicane there. Ethan's lost a bit of time.
Yeah, unfortunately for Kenny Press. Do tell me if I'm wrong here, Lewis, but is he on 15 hybrids?
Yes.
Yes, he is. Oh, that was a bit weird. Was Ethan Hill let Kyle Felvis pass there? I don't think Kyle was on the hybrid or anything. A bit strange, considering they're not technically teammates anymore. I know Kyle Felvis is going potentially for the championship, but it's a bit early in the day, I would say, but before letting people pass through to go and do that sort of thing. Bit of a shame for Ethan Hill there. I was actually half hoping he would be a race winner here today, but obviously things maybe not quite gone his way. Yeah, Kenny Press, whenever we've done a championship, any kind of championship with the hybrids, he just doesn't seem to have ever mapped his hybrid usage button. He go back and watch the replays if you don't believe me. He has never once used a hybrid in his racing career with VRRC. He's always finished with 15, and unfortunately it means he's a bit of a sitting duck. I would wager that if Kenny Press had actually used his hybrid over the years, we would have had quite a few more like podium positions for him, because in race 2, like we've seen today, he holds on to that position quite well at the first sort of half of the race, and then all of a sudden the quick guys start catching up to him, and especially with the hybrids, he's a sitting duck, as you're about to see right now, because I'd wager Scott Bugner is going to be pretty much into the braking zone, well alongside, if not fully in front. He's fully in front because he had so much extra horsepower going into Druid. So we have a new race leader, and it is in the form of Scott Bugner. I think we're going to have another second place driver, a new second place driver as well, but before too long, as Kyle Felvis doesn't even need the hybrids before we're launching a move at the inside through the final corner. And I think that was a bit ambitious, and lucky that they didn't make contact, to be honest, because that would have been a bit finger wag naughty at Kyle Felvis's direction. I don't think there was quite the room there. He wasn't late enough on the brakes, he didn't have the speed, but they just about get away with it, so he's going to have to try it maybe going into the hairpin or even into Cascades. Gets a half decent run out of the first corner, but it's not happening just yet. So now he's got his teammate Ethan Hill behind him. He's using a bit of a buffer, basically. He's a bit safer to the likes of Nathan Smith, Paul Laramie, but realistically, if you're looking for another race winner, you're probably waiting until Elliot Dalton-Ayres appears, as Jordan Taylor flies off the outside of the circuit.
Oh, that's not a particularly safe rejoin. Oh, and that's taken Ben Jemison as well. That's how not to do it, but that is how you make a clean overtake, as Kyle has now managed to navigate Kenny Press, and hopefully Ethan will be able to follow him through, as it looks like. Shout out to Nathan Smith, actually. He's beginning to reel this pack in, and using the hybrid, he could be pulling himself into quite a good finish here.
He could be, yeah. It's a good shout from him, isn't it, actually? And he's crawling all over the back of Ethan Hill. It's not like he's there not by merit. He's actually caught up to the back of this, and yeah, okay, he's not carved through like Kyle Felvis has, but he's not been dropped either as soon as they start, you know, getting a bit of a gap between each other. So Nathan Smith, fair play to you, and Paul Laramie as well. I think we said that at Croft, actually, about these two drivers, and I think I even gave Nathan Smith a bit of a shout out. Now here goes Ethan Hill on Kenny Press. Ethan Hill using the hybrid and actually overshoots the corner, and that's the problem, isn't it, really? When you add an extra 20 horsepower going into a corner where you don't normally initiate the hybrid, all of a sudden you miss the apex because the braking zone completely changes. You have to brake a lot earlier, so it can actually ruin your run through there if you're not careful. Luckily, he got away with it, but Kenny Press and Nathan Smith pretty much going side by side into the hairpin. Kenny Press trying to defend it, Nathan Smith trying to go down the outside, and who goes straight through? It's Paul Laramie, isn't it? That's going to not lose him quite as many places as I thought, actually. So, yeah, but Paul Laramie, not really ideal as he tries to chase down Oliver Gibson, who managed to squeeze his way through.
Yeah, it seems like the drivers are beginning to crack under pressure a bit more in this second race. They all resisted it quite well in the first race, but it seems like now in race 2, the drivers kind of get that sensation of having to force the action to happen. They've got to force the move to get past, to try and get above their rivals. As we can see, Oliver Gibson being very careful there as Nathan Smith goes off, throwing away all of that hard-earned ground that we were talking about just a lap ago.
Ooh. That's how to join, though, isn't it? Unlike what we saw before from Jordan Taylor, who sort of rejoined and then found himself in the middle of the circuit. If you're going to rejoin, stay to your side of the circuit. Basically, put your indicator on, isn't it? Oliver Gibson and Elliot Daltonet. Elliot Daltonet has done well to get through, and so the BMWs, don't get me wrong, but Paul Laramie is trying to lunge one at the inside or defend. I'm not entirely sure. We've joined this battle a little bit late. Jack Smith getting a 2-in-1 deal, and a lovely little move by him. It's not done and dusted just yet because he's got to go around the outside at Cascade to Paul Laramie. Here's Oliver Gibson, but how is his teammate going to come out, and how's he going to fare as he rejoins? Yeah, nice move there by Jack Smith. Paul Laramie, brilliant racing respect, I have to say, fully on board with that as Gibson now lines up and goes a little bit deep. Going for that late apex to get that lovely rear wheel drive traction out the corner as we have another crash as Alok Iyengar and Craig Curtis, I believe it was. Joel Lask still hasn't really had the time of his life either. Paul Laramie goes deep. I don't know if he's got those brake pedals calibrated or something because he just doesn't seem to be able to make a braking zone at the moment. And Oliver Gibson is going to fall ill here, I think, to Andy Dorman as they climb up the hill. Andy Dorman with a proper 2-in-1 opportunity. Are they on the hybrid? Yeah, they're all on the hybrid, so they're pretty much all going to be cancelling each other out. But Dorman, through Druids, gets the job done. That's really nice driving, Lewis.
Yeah, Andy Dorman's beginning to shine in this race as Oliver's been shuffled back a bit. He's been a bit cautious throughout this race when it comes to racecraft. He does have the best safety rating of anybody in VRRC, so you can always trust that Oliver will battle nice and cleanly, as now Andy Dorman has sliced his way past Kenny Press. He's really coming on song in this second race.
He is indeed, yeah. And just having a look, how's the front lot getting on? Scott Bugner, Carl Felvers, Ethan Hill. Not that much of a gap between Scott Bugner and Ethan Hill. Scott Bugner and Kyle Felvers. Ethan Hill's a little bit further back, isn't he? But really, this is where the sort of the closest action is. As I said, Paul Laramie just doesn't seem to be able to hit his brake pedal quite hard. And Oliver Gibson sliding his way through on Kenny Press there, who looks fearful that he might actually drop outside the top 10. There's Paul Laramie, and then he's got about a second and a half to play with. He might be able to hold on to a top 10 finishing position with how long's left to go? 7 minutes roughly. That's possible. It's doable, isn't it? I mean, the way Kenny has been driving, he's very consistent, if a little bit slow. And as I said, if you use those hybrids, it might help him a little bit. Oliver Gibson just behind Andy Dorman. Then I'll say just behind. There's about a second gap. Really, Dorman to Jack Smith is the closest that we've got inside the top 10 at the moment. And Dorman we saw very opportunistic before picking off Jack Smith's teammate. And Kenny Press, of course, 2-in-1. How can he fare against the championship leader? I mentioned before, Lewis, didn't we, while we were chatting away to Jack Smith, and Elliot Daltonet, I mentioned as well, the reverse grid, you do have to be patient, but ultimately there are points on offer, aren't they? And you can't just take it easy, sit back, relax, and be happy with an outside of the top 10 finish if you're going to go for a championship win.
Yeah, absolutely. Championships are really won and lost based on how well you can stay calm and just carefully pick your way through the carnage in those race 2 races. But also, a lot of the time, that person does happen to be fairly quick in race 1. So we've had some very deserving champions using this format, and I think it works well to give those a bit further down the order a chance to experience life at the top end of the order, and it helps them improve for the next time that they're starting, say, third on the grid, when they're maybe used to starting 14th on the grid. It gives them that experience, and then it makes it harder for the fast guys to pass them.
Exactly, and from our perspective, it's very entertaining. We don't enjoy people crashing, but it does make a bit of a storyline. It's quite sort of enjoyable to see for the drama that it creates, rather than, obviously, we don't want to see anybody's race. They have paid good hard money for this championship, and there are lots of big prizes on offer. We don't want to see anybody's race get ruined. But, a little bit of rubbing here and there, a little bit of friction between teammates or other competitors never goes amiss, and we do enjoy bringing it up in the race interviews afterwards and everything like that. So, it makes for good TV, put it that way. But, at the moment, it doesn't seem to be nothing too dramatic, I would say, has happened between two drivers. It's not like anything's happened maliciously. I know we saw, hello, though, a little bit of movement potentially from Oliver Gibson and Kenny Press, who's currently still sat in 7th place. A bit of a cork in the bottle here, I would argue, as Oliver Gibson looks to the inside, uses our hybrid, opens or crowbars his way through nice and deep onto the brakes, but holds on to all of that apex. Paul Laramie has finally found the brake pedal a little bit too hard, because he climbs all over the apex and can't follow Oliver Gibson through. I thought it was slightly ambitious anyways. Nathan Smith now climbs his way through, and going into his lap chicane, I don't think anybody would say that 2 or 3 wide is the way to go, but Josh Martin doesn't like to listen to them, and he's a bit of a maverick all on his own, isn't he? We haven't had much chat from Dave in the YouTube chat, but that's mainly because we haven't seen much of Josh Martin. Well, here he is climbing up the hill, clawing all over the back of the Honda just ahead of him, and even going grass cutting. He's dressed as a builder, but the man's a gardener right now as he gets his way through and just about holds on to 10th position and the car. So Josh Martin inside the top 10 for what I believe is potentially one of the first times in this evening. I don't even know what happened to him in race 1. I can't remember him.
Josh messaged me after qualifying saying his best 2 laps he invalidated by extending the track on the 2 laps that would have put him in the top 5, but in race 1 that pace that he said he had just didn't seem to materialise. I think we've seen Paul Laramie drop back.
Yeah, he's just fallen off the circuit at the rear end. There he is again.
That was
he's got cars flying backwards as well. Who's that? Is that Andy Carroll?
Yeah,
it is Andy Carroll. He's facing the right way now as he goes, the inside. Oh, no. Oh, my days. That's an unsafe place to rejoin at that speed. And there's more contact, and I think it's involving Paul Laramie again. And unfortunately, I think it's Chris Blakely, who hasn't had a very good time here in race number 2, has he? I think he was part of the contact right at the beginning of the race. We'll have a question on that in a minute as Josh Martin tries to go the long way round through his lop chicane. Very brave, very ambitious, very good on Nathan Smith.
Yeah, it looks like, oh my word, Kenny Press is using a hybrid. He's found the button. He's done it after months and months. He's found it.
Might give a driver the round just for that.
I think we have to.
Genuinely.
I feel like we're compelled to now.
He's driven really well as well.
He has. He's in 8th place. He's holding his own.
Exactly. He controlled the race at the beginning really well as well. I mean, he was in the lead for about 8-9 minutes before they all started catching up. And, no one from race 1 really stood out for me. So, Kenny Press, if he starts using his hybrid, holds on to a top 10 finishing position. Don't get me wrong, that still might not happen because we've got, 2 minutes to go. He's got Josh Martin, who seems to have picked up the pace finally, and Nathan Smith, who seems to be pretty decent in the race as well, but maybe a few more errors than Kenny Press has in his locker. I think he's been a really good driver. Anyway, to be honest, about 5 minutes ago, Lewis, I was racking my brains thinking, who on earth are we going to suggest for driver of the round? But I think Kenny Press is a good shout. As long as he doesn't take any other drivers out or anything like that, I think, he's in my pole position for that particular prize.
Well, if Kenny's listening to us and that's what's prompted him to start using the hybrid, use them all on 1 lap, Kenny, and then try and get fastest lap. Might get you some more points because you've got 14 and you've got 1 lap. So I hope the stream delay, he's using it again. He's got to be listening to us. That's what it's got to be, but it's close for the lead.
Is it close? Oh my days, it is close to the lead. Sorry, I thought, and as I said, my screen is a little bit fuzzy on those gaps, and it is very, isn't it? As we're going on to the final lap of the race, it's only a 1:23 lap, and there's only 1 minute to go. So Kyle Felvis could be well on his way to his second race victory. He's already made contact with one LB Motorsport car this race. What about the second one? Let's have a look. Scott Bugner leads this race. We know he is very quick, Scott Bugner. He was a champion before. Can he be another race winner here in the touring cars? Kyle goes very, very wide. That's not going to help him at all. That may well be the race done and dusted there for Scott Bugner, unless he makes a massive mistake. Maybe Kyle Bell is getting a little bit excited, but second place is not bad for him. I know what he's thinking in the car, though. He needs all the points he can get, especially with Jack Smith currently sat in 5th. Elliot Dalton-Ayres is in 4th as well. Another good race from him. Ethan Hill, it's a relief, if nothing else, to see him actually on the podium, because he's fully well deserved it with the pace that he's shown in qualifying and race 2 here. I mean, race 1 obviously didn't go his way. He got a good recovery into 13th, but it's not done and dusted for him. He's got Elliot Dalton-Ayres, who obviously qualified 1 position higher than him. He's in 4th place and crawling all over the back. He's actually half a second. It's about the same margin that we can see visually here between Felvis and Bugner. So as Ethan Hill rounds out the final couple of corners, it's going to be a tight one. Is it going to be a drag race to the line? What it's going to be, though, is a race victory here in the way of LB Motorsports driver Scott Bugner, a previous champion here at VRRC, and a first place and a first win of the season to him as well. Carl Belvers in second place, flashing the lights. He's finally got a smile on his face as well. And Ethan Hill will probably be the most popular driver to be on the podium tonight. A 3rd place for him. It's been a long time coming for a bit of success for Ethan. Elliot Dalton-Ayres comes home in 4th with Jack Smith in 5th. Again, those 2 drivers having a good evening of points hauling, that's for sure. Andy Dorman in 6th. A great overtake halfway through the race, actually, to get him into that position. Oliver Gibson found it a little bit harder to make the progress that his teammate did, Jack Smith. He's finishing in 7th. Josh Martin finally got into the top 10. He was in 8th. He ended up getting Kenny Press, but I'm still impressed with Kenny Press's driving. Jordan Taylor as well rounds out the top 10. But we are going to go to a very short break before we have a chat to all 3 of our podium sitters, and maybe even our driver of the round as well. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. We had your classic Oulton Park race 1, and then we had the opposite for race number 2. To be honest, it was hectic, it was action-packed, it was touring car racing here at the VRRC, and I have 3 drivers that lived and breathed and earned every single point of that one as well. And first place, we have LB Motorsports, Scott Bugner. Scott, congratulations on the race victory. I have to say, that looked pretty hard work, didn't it? Not only to survive the first couple of laps, the safety car, but then that fight at the end with Kyle and that him hunting you down as well, where you started to get a bit sweaty.
No, I tried to save as much of the hybrid as I could towards the end, so I kind of knew where I was slightly quicker, knew where Kyle was slightly quicker, so I knew as long as I didn't muck it up, then I should be okay. But yeah, he was quick.
He was indeed, and obviously there was a little bit of contact. There was a 3rd driver, wasn't there, in that sort of mix about halfway through, trying to go for those podium positions. That was your teammate, Joel Lask. Now, we didn't really, well, we sort of saw the contact, but it was very pixelated for me. Talk us through what the sort of process was, those couple of corners from your perspective, because obviously There was that contact, your teammate fell off, and you took that as an opportunity to get into second place yourself and get past Kyle. What was sort of the process in your head?
I'll probably keep my mouth quiet for that little bit of Joel's contact. But yeah, it just, it's tight going up up the hill into Druid. So two up there, two side by side into there. It is tight. But I just said to Joel, I need to stay out of trouble. I need to get as many points as I can, and luckily we did. We dropped a few in the first race, but we'll still fight.
I was going to say, put on a fight is exactly what you did. A race victory. It's been a little while for you, hasn't it? I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't got Andy McEwen's stats in front of me, so I don't exactly know how long it's been since your race win. But I don't seem to remember you getting one for this particular championship, although you might correct me. So is it nice to be back on the top step?
I did win at Brands.
You did win at Brands. Damn it! I was saying that, and I was thinking, I've got this wrong here, haven't I? But still,
Ollie Gibson had a good race at Brands.
That was it, of course. Yeah, because he was on pole position for it, wasn't it? And then you came back at him, of course. Yes, my apologies. But I mean, here at Oulton Park, to do that in race 2 from near the back of the field, that's very, very good in itself.
It's good. It's good. It's good. I enjoyed that one. It is tough around Oulton. It's a very tight circuit. We see in real life in the touring cars, it's very bumper to bumper, and we know that there's a lot of contact. So I was kind of looking forward to it. But yeah, it was good. We got points out of it, and we'll have to see how we get on at Snetterton.
I was going to say one last question about looking forward towards the second half of the championship. This does signify the halfway mark now. Snetterton, Brands Hatch GP, Silverstone. What's on the agenda for you? Which ones are you looking forward to?
Well, I got a win at Snetterton in real life last weekend, so hopefully I can do it again next week.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think as long as we get the points, and we've got to try and finish ahead of certain people, then we'll try and take the fight to the end of the championship, and we'll try and put on a good show at Silverstone.
Well, it's quite nice and tight in the championship. We'll reveal all, obviously, in a couple of minutes' time. But congratulations, Scott, on the race victory, and we'll speak to you, I'm sure, later in the season.
Thank you very much.
Right, in second place. Yeah, Lewis has just put on the broadcast chat that he even mentioned that the battle between Scott and Oliver Gibson in this broadcast, and I completely forgot about it. My apologies. It's been a long night, okay? Kyle Felvis is second on the podium, and, he's getting a fair few of these podiums recently as well. Kyle, that looked like, you look a lot happier now than when we put the camera on you in race number 1 with some close racing there. So you look fairly pleased to come home in second place.
Second was sort of just, what I needed. I wanted first, obviously, but there was a point in that race where I just decided that second was it, and I was pushing just in case Scott makes a mistake, but I wasn't going to go full send on him because I just wanted the points, really. First race as well, there was a lot of contact, so I didn't want that to happen again, so I was just standing my ground and sitting there. But yeah, first race was just concentration, really.
I was going to say, there was at Oulton Park, I mentioned it quite a few times tonight, as all commentators do every time there's a race at Oulton Park. You have to be quite inventive, and you have to show a lot of racecraft and guile to actually get through the order here, don't you? And you showed that you have all of that in abundance. Was it a fun race, at least, to get through and try and sort of pull off some showmanship-style moves?
It was good. I did enjoy it. People put up a good fight, and that's what you like to see. So it was good, yeah. And big shout out to Ethan for finishing third. He's had an unlucky season so far. It's been really unfortunate for him, but to get home in third was brilliant for him, and hopefully he can do more of that the rest of the season.
Absolutely, yeah. We're looking forward to having a chat with Ethan. Actually, we were all very excited that he got onto the podium as well as we were watching you, Kyle. Last question. You probably know what's coming. It's about that contact with Joel Lask. What was it like from your perspective going into Druids?
Contact.
Well, it looked like Joel was very sideways coming out of it, and then he ended up on the grass. Was there contact, or from your perspective, it doesn't sound like there was.
I don't even remember being near Joel. Was it second race or first race?
Second race. It was just a couple of corners before Scott got through. I think it was Joel.
I don't recall.
Okay then. Well, that's fair enough. Clearly didn't really stick in your mind very much at all. Okay, well, fair enough. We'll leave you to it. Congratulations on the second place, Ethan, and I'm sure we'll chat to you through the rest of the season.
I'm Kyle, but yeah, thank you.
Oh, Kyle, sorry.
It's all right. Enjoy the football later.
Cheers. It's been a long day. Did I just call him Lewis? My apologies. I don't know who I called him in the
didn't.
end. Right, Ethan Hill, that's the driver that I'm next up. I did just double check, I'll be honest. Ethan, congratulations on the third place. And I have to say that, from my perspective, was the most enjoyable podium of the evening, because in practice, you were 13th. In the race, in qualified third. Race 1 didn't go your way. 13th, I think you came again. But that race 2, it finally came together for you.
Yeah, race 1 was sort of like a curse, because I qualified really well, qualified third, and then Nikki in our Google Meet said something about Cascades, about losing the rear, and I then lost the rear into Cascades, which was typical, but it was fine. I managed to make a good recovery in race 1, which is what I wanted, to start well for race 2. I can't really get good starts in these cars at the minute, so I'm going to sort that out and nail that, hopefully, for Snetterton next week. But then really, I let Kyle go so he could have a go at Scott, so I could just keep third and just keep calm, which managed to work, and managed to come home in third place, which I'm really happy about.
Yeah, it was very impressive indeed. We did see Kyle go through you, and we were sort of sat in the commentary box thinking, oh, it's a little early in the season. They're not really quite teammates either. Or do you still feel like, as HFT, as an umbrella team, you are technically teammates?
Yeah, we are somewhat teammates, of course. Obviously, we still chat to people sharing the Google Meet every week. This is obviously under a different team name, but I knew Kyle was quicker than me. I wanted him to have a go at Scott, so I could just keep my head down for the third place. And just also, like you're saying with Kyle, I had the contact with Joel. It was me.
Lewis just told me.
It was me, not Kyle. So
right,
I nearly came
Kyle.
on. I nearly came on and said that was me who had the contact, but I was going to wait for me to say it in the actual interview. So I feel like Joel squeezed me a little bit, which then made contact for him to go into the barrier. But I need to look over it in a couple, maybe tonight, but probably not. I'll probably do it tomorrow.
Well, my apologies to Kyle. Massive apologies there. You can tell that it's been a lot. I do apologise there. So, as I said, what was your perspective? Just a little bit of squeezing, haven't had time to process it, and you sort of,
Yeah, I feel like I didn't really have
Stuart at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. It's down to Rich. Because he'll be making all the decisions on Monday. But I personally felt I was squeezed a little bit. So then he came over and then had contact. But it'll be for us to look at on Monday.
Well, fantastic. Very, very good response to it as well. And well done for owning up for it, because, as I said, I was completely in another direction. Congratulations, Ethan, on the podium. Hopefully we see this race pace turn into a few more good results going forward in the season.
I really hope so. Cheers, Jack. Enjoy the football.
Thank you very much. Right. We are just a bit of a shout out, Lewis, as well, to our driver of the round, who hasn't come and made an appearance in the interview room, unfortunately. But I think me and you, or we decided Kenny Press as the driver of the round. I think we can both agree with that, can't we?
Yeah, I think it was great to see. Like, we obviously love the fact that Kenny's now started using the hybrid, but if you put that to one side, he did have a really good race.
He did.
As you mentioned earlier in the broadcast, he did control the race 2 from the start really well. He didn't get kind of panicky and start overdriving when people started battling him. He fought people as hard as he reasonably should have done until it was going to start losing him more time, and then he just let them go and let them drag him further along, and it's netted him a really good result for him in the end. Definitely his best result that I can think of. So that's really nice for him.
It definitely is, yeah. So he'll be enjoying an NGK jacket. And remember, he actually had to control that start twice, which is why I was very impressed, because he did it off the line. And then he had the safety car to contend with as well. And even then, he pulled a really nice margin to the likes of Stuart Vickers, I believe. So, well done to Kenny Press. He'll be getting a nice NGK jacket. And speaking of the NGK jackets, of course, we have to pick a supporter from the YouTube chat who's going to get one of those jackets as well. And we've decided, Respell, I know he's a competitor, but even though he wasn't feeling quite 100%. He's come in, he's commented, he's engaged, he's watched along, and he's been really supportive of all the drivers as well. He's so fantastic. Thank you very much to Reese Bell, and an NGK jacket will be on his way once more. And of course, there's an NGK hat that will be going to the top scorer, but that is subject to any and all different stupid decisions. Right. We have a couple of last bits to get through. What's coming up next at the VRRC, or what's going on at the same time. And hopefully we'll bring up the graphic for you. There we go. It's obviously we've got round 5 at Snetterton for the Touring Car Championship. We've got time attacks around Imola, the Lamborghini GT3 that's currently going on at the moment. Started a couple of days ago and will run till the 26th of May. Then we've got, is that the 1st to the 12th of May? The graphic says slightly different. Rich, you're in here at the moment. What's the actual decision on that one?
I wasn't listening. Sorry.
No, well, the time attack for the Lamborghini GT3, the graphic that's currently on screen at the moment, there's two different dates. There's the 15th to the 26th, or the 1st to the 12th.
It's the one. It's the one on the graphic.
Right. So the 15th to the 26th of May.
Correct. Yeah.
Fantastic. Then there's the fun race as well, which obviously mirrors the actual F1 calendar. So we're at Monaco. Obviously, there's big news around Imola being cancelled this weekend. But we're at Monaco on the 23rd of May. Then there's obviously another round of the Touring Car Championship, the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship. We head off to Thruxton, which will be super quick and super exciting. I'm sure the championship's looking rather tasty. Then we got a time attack around Silverstone in a Brabham GT2 car. I tell you what, that's going to be hard work, but very, very exciting indeed for people who like to hot lap Silverstone in a very quick car. And then we got one last mirror race, obviously a circuit to Catalonia, which will be on the 30th of May. I think that's to head off the triple header of European races for the F1 calendar. So if you want to get involved with some F1 action on Assetto Corsa, it's a lot more realistic, a lot more enjoyable than the F1 game, then by all means jump into the Discord or follow the link below to the website of VRRC. Right, what else is coming up next? It's the GT500, I believe. Rich, take it away, because I haven't seen this graphic before. I'm just sort of leaving you in the lurch here a little bit with it.
Thanks. It's a good job I was listening that time, isn't it? So after this championship ends, we're going to do another special event. So we're going to do the GT500 cars, which are huge over in Japan. Very fast, lots of aero, lots of power. The cars are pretty epic. So the United Racing Design cars, so they're properly sorted cars. And we're taking in 4 of the best circuits out there. So yeah, we're looking at Suzuka, Akiyama, Motegi, and then Sugo. So all fantastic circuits for these cars. So looking forward to it. Broadcast as usual on Wednesday nights. So 8 races, 4 rounds. Let's get it on.
Absolutely, yeah. Okayama actually used to be a country club for the ultra rich. I remember over in Japan, almost like a golf course. You had to be like a member and everything to race there. But now, obviously, with the
somewhere you frequented, is it?
Absolutely, yes. Go for a nice wine over there, every so often. But no, it's a brilliant circuit, and with the brilliance of sim racing, it means we can actually go and race it without having to spend £5 million on an entry fee or whatever it is. So yeah, fantastic. That's the GT500 Championship. We'll be speaking about that a lot more, obviously, with the weeks to come as we've just hit over the halfway mark in this championship, which is the next graphic, I believe, where we bring up exactly how we're standing. There it is. Jack Smith, who has 132 points, is a comfortable lead, really, over Kyle Felvis. The fight for second place is a lot more intense, though. Elliot Daltonaires with 116, 3 points behind Kyle. Scott Bugner with 114, only 5 points behind Kyle. Then Oliver Gibson, equally, only 9 points behind Kyle. You could go on for quite some time now, but those 4 drivers, all with a realistic shout of getting that second place, and they're just sort of waiting for Jack Smith to trip up one of these days. But at the moment, he seems pretty unstoppable. Joel Lask, Josh Martin, Jordan Taylor, they're all sort of around and about that the battle for 6th position. Unfortunately, that isn't for a prize, so they're hoping to get a little bit more consistent, score some bigger points, maybe get some race wins, and eke their way into that top 5 position. Then obviously you can see all the way down to Craig Curtis. Eric Axelston still just about clinging on to that 9th position. This will be his drop round, of course, though, after taking, I believe, his other half out for a date tonight, which is why he couldn't actually join us for the race, which is, in my sort of humble opinion, a poor excuse, Eric, if you're watching this back. But yes, it will be nice to see him back on the grid next time out. And I believe, Lewis, so we only have one last thing to have a look at, which is potentially the next round, the last 4 remaining rounds as we've hit that halfway stage. And indeed, there they are. Snetterton, Thruxton, Brands Hatch, and Silverstone is what we've got left for the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship, powered by VRRC. My name has been Jack Oliphant. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host for today. I've had Lewis Edwards alongside me, and it's been brilliant to have him here as well, giving all of his technical insight to all things sim racing. Always very enjoyable to have a new face and voice alongside, even though we do miss Andy McEwen. We hope he's back soon, of course. Right, it's about that time. We say good night. We'll see you next week for more VRRC action. Enjoy your evening and enjoy your week.
Woo!